Combat roles are probably more realistic than you think. I made an observation the other day. Now, for those of you who do not know, I do some, I do fencing. I do sword fighting practices about once a week. Sometimes I go to events. I was doing a sword fighting practice the other day, and we were doing what's called rabbit drills. We're going to have a little story as I announced at the beginning of the video what it's about, and then I'm going to tell you a story that doesn't seem to have anything to do with it, but I will tie it around. Trust me. So we're doing a thing called rabbit drills. You have one person versus 2 or 3 people who are chasing them down, and it's supposed to be a no-win scenario for the rabbit. Just survive as long as you can. Technically, the rabbit can win if they kill everyone on the enemy team, but they're not supposed to. So we were doing this, and I was on the team of multiple, and so we're kind of like trying to corral this guy into a place that he can't get out of, so that we can surround and go in for the kill. Because you can't be sloppy. Like, you do have a huge advantage. You shouldn't lose because you are careful. So we did this 5, 6, 8 times in a row, and afterwards the guy who was the rabbit mentioned that he kept losing track of the other players on my team, the other fighters, because he had to keep watching me. I was such a big imposing distraction, and like, he could not take his eyes off of me for a moment. Therefore, my teammates kept getting in behind him or off to the side, coming in from unexpected angles, getting closer than he thought they could. And I realized I'm doing defender stuff. Like, I'm taking up the attention of our foe in order to create openings for my allies, protect my allies. I'm being a defender. I'm being a tank, if you will. Albeit not in the classic video game sense of, like, I'm taking hits, because if I take one hit, I'm dead in this sport. So I'm not taking hits, but I am defending my team by being big and obvious and getting the attention of the target. And I realized that this got me to thinking about combat roles as they exist in role-playing games. In particular, you know that combat roles are a big part of 4th edition's class design philosophy. And so I realized that as I gear up for a 4th edition campaign for some people that I know in that group who fight with swords, who do fencing like I do, I think, despite their lack of experience, because they haven't played a lot of 4th edition, one of them has not played D&D at all before, I think they're going to appreciate combat roles in a way that casual D&D players generally don't. Because you tend to look at combat roles and think, ah, yes, the holy trinity, the tank, the DPS, and the healer, translated into 4 roles: the defender, the leader, the controller, and the striker. These feel video gamey to some people. Now, I had a video, like one of my first videos, where I think I made really, really, really good points that hadn't necessarily been fully articulated before, is that combat roles, was I talking about combat roles? No, I was talking about 4th edition in general. But I think I focused a lot on I focused a lot on combat roles. I focused a lot on combat roles for good reason, because these are your classic, RPG archetypes. They feel video gamey to people, but they are not video gamey. The video games are D&D-ish. Because D&D started out with this idea that, the fighter is the front line. He goes up and defends his allies who stay in the back and perform. Like, everyone has their specialized roles. The cleric heals everybody. Everyone has these specialized roles that they're supposed to fulfill. Most versions of D&D don't follow those roles. They don't encourage them mechanically. They don't facilitate that kind of fantasy. But video games do. Because video games are better designed in general. Another video that I've already made is about how video games are held to a higher standard than D&D is, and that's why they tend to be better. All of that said to say this, that the reason why combat roles feel so good is in part because they reflect actual real life combat. In a real combat scenario, in a team-based combat scenario, I should say, everyone's got a job to do. And if they don't do their job, the team falls apart. This is real thing. Like, you don't just have everybody is the same, everybody just goes forth and does their own thing completely regardless of what their team is doing. That's terrible. You might still win. You will win badly. You will take casualties. You will not be as efficient as you should be. You can do it. You shouldn't. Team-based combat should be role-based. You have the people who are better at defending, the people who are better at maneuvering, at doing the strike, the people who are better at coordinating everyone together. Everyone has their strengths and weaknesses. IRL. I'm not even talking about that tabletop right now. In real life combat, everyone has their strengths and weaknesses, and a well-oiled team uses those strengths and weaknesses to their advantage to create a cohesive whole that capitalizes on the strengths and mitigates the weaknesses of its constituent people. This is a thing that 4th edition does very well. It's a thing Lancer does very well. I think most tactical RPGs these days do it well. 5th edition, of course, does not. Everyone's kind of on their own for that. Hey, it's that same shirt, y'all. It's that same shirt. Ha! Didn't even notice until just now. Of course, in 5th edition, you either have people who don't really have tactical options. They just go in and bonk, bonk, bonk. And then you have those who are like, snap my fingers, and the enemy is no longer a threat. And now we're going to whittle them down until their hit points hit 0. In a well-designed tactical game, that can't happen. You have to have everyone has their role, and it should be important. It should feel important. I came across something like this in my one-shot that I ran for Lancer. I intend to run more Lancer pretty soon, actually. But in the one-shot that I ran, just to sort of get everyone used to the rules, there was an objective. They had to get across the map, grab an objective, get back across the map. The thing is, the rules for moving the objective was that if you start your turn adjacent to it, you can move it with you as you do your normal move. If you try to boost, which is go, like, move again, basically, your double move, or do any other kinds of movement, it doesn't move with you then. So you're kind of limited on how fast you can move it. Well, multiple people in preparation for the mission spec'd out their mechs to have a compartment big enough for this objective. That's pretty cool. So now you had 2 people in the party whose role was to secure the objective. So I allowed them as a full action, grab the objective, put it in the mech, and now it just fully moves with that mech. You don't have to like worry about moving it via the normal rules. So you then have a carrier. You have someone who is distinct from the rest of the team. That person is a priority target for all the enemies, and they need to be covered by all the allies. Oh, that's so cool. That's really cool. If everyone moves the objective, well, you can still coordinate. You can do team-based tactics, but it's less role-based. Now, I know Lancer has other roles. It has the classic, the striker, the artillery, the defender, the controller, and the support. So they actually have 5 roles. And that is specifically in regards to combat. But I'm in a much more limited sense in this specific context. You had someone adopt a specialized role that the rest of the party can now play around. And that's really cool. The ability to do that is just excellent. So I get annoyed at the idea, which I see kind of a lot in pro 5e communities, that roles are in some way inherently video gamey. They're too game-ish. They're not based in reality. There's a lot of stuff in D&D that's not based on reality. I've talked about opportunity attacks before. Opportunity attacks have no basis in real combat at all. They're fully made up as a game construct. roles, they are now like IRL roles. Like, I'm not going to point at someone and say, you're marked. Like, clearly there are some abstractions here. There's a translation from real concepts into game mechanics in order to make the game more playable. That said, they are based in reality in a way that a lot of D&D actually isn't. And so it makes it one of the less gamey aspects of 4th edition, is making it so that everyone has a role that they are specialized in. The defender, not the tank, the defender, like they behave differently in order to affect and manipulate the enemies. The strikers focus entirely on damage. They're very focused on doing the killing blow, hitting as hard as possible. They don't have to worry as much about defense. They have someone else for that. You have the leader who has a lot of support abilities. They're naturally synergistic with their people. And you have the controllers who think about the big picture, about the overall tactical space. All of these are important. All of these come together to create a greater whole than if you had a bunch of people who all were kind of self-sufficient and kind of covered every base a little bit. It's a lot more interesting, I think. I come back to the idea of the Magic the Gathering color pie, the idea that each color can do certain things and it can't do other things, or maybe it's more efficient at some things and less efficient at other things. You'll step in a little bit, but if it's not the thing that your color is specialized in, you can't really do it that well. And so that encourages you to build a deck with more than one color, just like building a team with more than one class. When you have a game that has no roles, generally speaking, you can pick the best class and just fill the team with that, and you're stronger than a more diverse team. In a game with roles, you can't really get away with that. You get more synergy, you get more out of the game by diversifying. And so the game mechanics are encouraging and rewarding that kind of team building and that kind of behavior. I think that's just really cool. I think there should be more of that in gaming in general. Because it's a lot of fun to build around, and I think it's just really excellent game design. It's just a shame that Wizards of the Coast doesn't agree.